My name is Muhammad Asif, and today I am going to tell you some important questions from Goodbye Mr. Chips. Today I will tell you questions only from first 5 chapters. So please take out your notebooks to write down the questions. The first question from the chapter number 1 is: how did Mr. Chips measure his time at Mrs. Wicket's? How did Mr. Chips measure his time at Mrs. Wicket's? Question number 2: what did Merivale ask Mr. Chips to do, or who was Dr. Merivale? Who was Dr. Merivale and what was his opinion about Mr. Chips' health? Who was Dr. Merivale and what was his opinion about Mr. Chips' health? Question number 3 from chapter 1: why did Mr. Chips leave Mulberry School? Why did Mr. Chips leave Mulberry School? Question number 4: what advice did Weatherby give to Mr. Chips about discipline? What advice Weatherby gave to Mr. Chips in his first interview? Next question is: who was Coley? Who was Coley? Now, chapter number 2: what type of men did Brookfield produce? What type of men did Brookfield produce? What is the contribution of Brookfield School to England? Yeah. What kind of professional men did Brookfield supply? These three questions have the same answer. Next question from chapter number 2: what were Chip's ambitions as a school teacher? Yeah, what was Mr. Chip's ambition? Yeah, what was the dream of Mr. Chips in his early 20s? What was the dream of Mr. Chips in his early 20s? Next question: what was presented to Mr. Chips at his retirement? What was presented to Mr. Chips at his retirement? Yeah, when did Chips receive his farewell party? Yeah, what happened to Chips in 1913? Chapter number 3: briefly describe Mr. Chips' room at Mrs. Wicket's. Briefly describe Mr. Chips' room at Mrs. Wicket's. Or how was Chips' room decorated at Mrs. Wicket's? Next question from chapter number 3: how did Mr. Chips entertain his students at Mrs. Wicket's? How did Mr. Chips treat his new students? Next question: who was Collingwood? Who was Collingwood? Who was Branksome? Who was Branksome? Chapter number 4: describe the most interesting incident in the novel Goodbye Mr. Chips. Or Why was spring of 1896 important for Chips? Next question. How did Mr. Chips come across Catherine Bridges? How did Mr. Chips come across Catherine Bridges? Next question. What were Chips' views about women? Or what were Chips' views about modern women? Or why did Mr. Chips dislike women of 20th century? Next question. Write a note on Catherine Bridges. Describe the appearance of Catherine Bridges. Next question. What were the political ideas of Mr. Chips and Catherine Bridges? Chapter number 5. Why did Catherine like Mr. Chips? Or what were Catherine's views about Chips' profession? What were Catherine's views about Chips' profession? Why did Mr. Chips always depreciate himself? Or what were the weaknesses of Mr. Chips? These are the important questions from chapter 1 to 5. From chapter 1 to 5. Thank you very much.